Okay, it's Sunday, and our third weekend for RPG A Day 2018 is winding to a close. Or, I guess for some of you it hasn't even started yet. But anyway, today's weekend was about inspiration and support, and the particular prompt for today was about music and how it enhances your game. Anybody who's familiar with this channel may already realize that music is a pretty big deal to me. It plays a big role in my enjoyment of life. But in my games, it's absent now. There was a long period of time, particularly in the White Wolf days, where I experimented very, very heavily with music. And I tried a lot of different things with it in a lot of different ways with a lot of different people. But that was a long time ago, and that was a very long period of time, a very long extended series of campaigns and branching campaigns. And so those experiments eventually reached their end, and I drew some conclusions, and I've based my play on them. So these days I don't use soundtracks in my play. I don't use music that I think will inspire a mood or, invoke a sense of anticipation or, oh, combat has started and that kind of thing. I did do that a lot, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of it. But I found, for me, that this was a thing that required my attention, and I preferred to put my attention elsewhere. So it wasn't that it wasn't working. It wasn't that it was a bad idea. It's that, considering my own enjoyment of the session, I got more if I paid more attention to other elements than that. And if I'm doing a better job in the Game Master's chair, then I feel like the players appreciate it as well. So this isn't a video about why I changed my mind about using music. This is a video about how I use music. So one of the first ways that I ever used music was as a part of the setting. In other words, using it as a prop. And my access to various types of music was expanding around the same time that I was getting into more period play, like Call of Cthulhu and Cthulhu Now and things like this. And Vampire was just about, to come to my attention. So as I'm moving away from fantasy or totally fictional worlds like Star Wars or Paranoia or things like that, and moving toward modern day, or at least our world settings, then music became a tool that I could really use. Walk into a speakeasy in the 1920s, I could play what was actually playing. And so I'm not trying to set the mood. I'm not trying to influence emotion or portrayal of emotion. Instead, I'm saying, this is what your characters hear. This kind of place. So you could play classical music when they're moving into some sort of, upper crust after dinner party of potential expedition investors. Or you might play some jazz or blues or some crooners or what have you, to give people a sense of where they are, a sense of time and place. And I really like being able to do that. I like the reaction it causes, and it's very easy to have that just fade into the background when the song runs its course, even though the scene hasn't. You don't have to have the thing looping, or you don't have to have long playlists. You can just put it in there and have it fade away. Similarly to putting other physical props on the table, like you find an old lantern clunk, or there's a gold coin clatter, or there's a letter, here, read it, and then it just gets moved aside for later, becomes a part of the memory, becomes a part of the fabric of the scene. This, I find, for me, makes me feel like I'm doing a good job, makes me feel like the scene is enhanced per the prompt, and I like the reaction it gets from players. But one thing that I've hung on to from my long experiments with music, especially in Vampire, is using particular audio cues for particular characters, using a specific theme song for a character or for a situation or a place, and using that to inform my description and my portrayal of it. I no longer play it during the session. I no longer, weave that into the background music and have people react to it, because I don't want that player distraction or reaction. I want character reaction. So if I have that song in my head, it informs my representation of that NPC or of that place. And it gives me a very clear and distinct division between this NPC and that NPC if I've got that in the back of my head as like a mnemonic device. And since I've developed that technique, I've felt better about my NPC portrayals. And when I'm in a setting where it feels awkward to match the kind of music that I have with the kind of setting that it is, I'm less comfortable with my NPCs. It's become part of the actual fabric of how I do what I do. So I find that interesting. But these two ways are how I use music to enhance my game. We're moving into week 4. And week 4's prompt or specific trigger is which. So look forward to some very specific questions about who we are and how we play.